Today, I have some terrible news to share with you. It's come to our attention that a young lady, the daughter of a man we all know and love very much, a man that we have got so much respect for, that this young lady was raped. She was abused, and that didn't happen in the street, but it happened in her own home. And it was done to her by somebody she knew, her own brother. He was a half-brother, but somebody she grew up with, somebody she loved as a brother. And this was also instigated by a cousin of hers, who encouraged the brother to rape his sister. And when the other brother found out about this, well, he remained silent. He didn't say a word about it to anyone. And then when the father, when he found out, of course, as you can imagine, he was furious. And in his fury, he did nothing. He walked away. He could have changed the situation, but he did nothing. Well, this lady, this young woman, she could be your sister, your daughter-in-law, or even your mother. She could be the lady living next door to you, or the one you work with, or even the one who sits next to you in church. But in this instance, she comes from a very well-known family, a family we all know and love. She is Tamar, the young, beautiful daughter of David, the sister of Absalom. She's the ultimate trophy wife. She's young, she's intelligent, she's a princess, so she's very well connected. And mostly in her culture, where they value this, she's a virgin. She would be a catch for any man. And above all this, her father is David. David, who we all know. David, a man of God. David, the giant slayer, the soldier, the king, the prophet, the poet, the writer, the musician. This David, we all had come to love as we got to know him. He's powerful and he's loved by everyone. Even now, 3,000 years after he slayed the giant, he is still our hero. He protected his nation against this giant. He stood against armies, even at overwhelming odds. He fought them off so that his people could be safe. Yet, he would not protect his own daughter. And we read that Tamar remained a desolate woman. This happy, beautiful young woman with the promise of a beautiful life ahead of her and a wonderful future. She remained a desolate woman. She ended up like this because of what was done to her by one of her own family members. And not because she was captured or harmed by the Philistines, but because she was harmed, misused, and ignored by the men in her life. Those who were supposed to protect her and look out for her. They were the ones doing the damage. Yes, the story is 3,000 years old, but this is still happening today. So who's the modern Tamar? Is she also desolate? The modern Tamar is our mother, our sisters, our sister-in-laws, our daughters, maybe the neighbor's daughter, or a colleague, or a secretary, or a teacher at school, or that friendly lady at a grocer. They're all around us, and most of them won't show that they are desolate women. And they are desolate because they remain victims. They are powerless. Those who are supposed to help them don't help them. And those who are supposed to protect them, well, they abuse them and then they disempower them. They isolate them from the support systems, from their friends and their family. It's happening in our homes. Now, as you would know, there's a vote of no confidence before Parliament in our President. But one of the points in this vote of no confidence is that our legal system, that is not changed this to a system that's victim-based. But this system still protects the predators more than it does the victims. And we are all empowered to help change the story. In this story of Tamar, if only one character had behaved differently, if only one of them had behaved differently, the story would have been completely different, and the ending would have been much better for her. Amnon wouldn't have done what he had done, perhaps, or maybe even if he did it, he wouldn't have got away with it, and Tamar would not have been a desolate woman for the rest of her life. Now, when I read this to a friend of mine, who also comes from an abusive relationship, where abuse is still being carried forward through the legal system, when I read the story to her, she says, where's the hope for the victims in this story? Where's the hope for the Tamars in this story? Does this story tells us that we have to remain desolate for the rest of our lives? Remain the victims? And the hope for the Tamars in this story is exactly this. That if any one of the characters in this story had just done something differently, just one of those characters, then everything else would have changed. If Jonadab, when Amnon came to him and said, I'm in love with my sister, I'm feeling sick, if he had given him different advice, if Amnon got help, Tamar would have been safe. David could have changed everything right there. He could have set it right. David, this giant slayer, was powerful enough. By his word, he could have put Tamar back in her place and position that she had before, and he could have made Amnon do the right thing by marrying his sister, as it was their custom in that time. Absalom, if he had just spoken out, if he had insisted, if he had gone to his father and said, this is not right, Dad, you should change this. You are powerful enough to set this right. He could have reminded David, and things would have been different for Amnon and for Tamar. And Tamar would not have remained desolate. In the story of the modern Tamar, we are all characters in the story. And so we will look at these characters in this story one by one. And as we look at them, we will see what part we play in the story of Tamar. Or maybe even what part we are not playing when we're supposed to be playing a part. So next up we will look at Amnon. And until then, God bless.